Any health-related information on the following show provides general information only. Content presented on any show by any host or guest should not be substituted for a doctor's advice. Always consult your physician before beginning any new diet, exercise, or treatment program.
Welcome to Accelerated Health with Sara Banta. I'm a busy wife, mom of 3, and an NAMP certified supplement professional, but that's not all. I'm also the founder of the multi-award-winning Accelerated Health Products, a brand offering innovative natural scalar enhanced supplements to optimize your health. And this podcast is not just a source of information, we're a community. We're all here to learn and grow on our health journeys, regardless of where you are today. And this podcast is the springboard to learning, and the free group coaching on Telegram is where we continue learning together. You can ask your questions. I post tips and tools to deepen your health and keep you motivated every day. So here's what you can expect. New episodes every Monday and Wednesday with in-depth health discussions and expert guests. Hot topics that are in the news every Friday to keep things fun. And then, of course, followed up with the free group coaching. So make sure you join. The details are on my website at SaraBantaHealth.com. And have you thought about detoxing, especially after listening to today's episode, but you might be worried if it's too much. You're worried about the detox flu symptoms. Well, I've created over 10 unique, easy detox cleanses to help you reset your body while feeling great. No detox symptoms. Just take the detox quiz on my website to find out which one's right for you. And maybe you're not ready for a detox, but maybe you just want to start with a few supplements or even just one, but don't know where to start. Just fill out the free protocol form on my website, and I will personally put together a protocol for you. Just by taking a few steps forward with your health, you will change your life, and I'm here to help you every step of the way. I'm so excited about today's topic and today's guest. Amanda Kuda teaches a modern approach to personal development, self-actualization. As you can tell, I'm having a hard time with my words today, and spiritual enlightenment through the lens of elective sobriety, not forced sobriety. That is the key. And I'm going to let her tell more of her story. Welcome, Amanda. How are you today?
Hello, Sara. I am great. Thank you for having me on your show today.
I am really excited about this because personally, I come from a very addictive family background. We've got drug use, we've got alcohol use, we've got people that are functioning alcoholics. I even have a father who literally will only allow himself that one drink every night during the week. He gives himself the 2 drinks on the weekend, but he needs to have it exactly 30 minutes before dinner so he doesn't have the craving to have that second drink. And so from the get-go, when I was younger, I'm like, I better be careful. So even in high school, I wasn't a big drinker. My friends used to say, Sara, you better learn to drink beer before you go to college. I'm like, I can't even stand the taste of beer. Give me a vodka soda or a fruity drink, I'm fine, but not the beer. And then get into college, I'm thinking I'm going to have to drink a lot. I drank more than I should have, but I didn't drink half or even a quarter of what most college kids drink. And then when I got into raising my kids, no drinking. The third baby came along, started drinking coffee in the morning, started drinking alcohol in the afternoon just to relax. It wasn't a social thing. And then I thought, this isn't so good. Why am I needing this? And I didn't want to get to the point where it was forced, right? I mean, if you become an addict, then you're forced to not have that one thing. And so I just stopped, but I didn't say, okay, stop for 30 days or stop for a year. I just kind of stopped. But if I said, if my husband's having a drink out to dinner, can I have a sip or 2? Sure, why not? Over time, what I found was the alcohol wasn't giving me what I used to get from it or what I wanted from it. And, today, I don't really drink. I drank at my 30th reunion 2 months ago. Oh my goodness, did I suffer the next day? And I didn't have more than 2 drinks. But it's just like with dieting, right? When you clean up your diet, and I don't mean restrictive dieting and losing weight. I mean just clean eating, foods that nurture your body. When you then go out to McDonald's or even just have a pizza, you feel awful because you have cleaned your system out and now it knows what is poison to the body and what's not fueling it. So the problem is most people don't get to that point with alcohol because it's part of their daily life and or even weekly life, and they don't realize what it's doing. So there's so much to unpack with this, and we can get into, I want to get into the mental space, the relationships, all of it. But first, please tell everybody your story, because it's very similar to me in the sense that you were not forced with alcohol.
No, and I thank you for sharing that too, because it just gives me so much insight into all of the different paths that we can have to get to this point. And, you know, of course, there's the path that we've been traditionally taught is the path to sobriety, which is alcoholism, addiction, 12 steps, recovery, all of those things, which are very valid paths. But then there's all of these other paths to the same destination that have started to become more popularized in the past few years. But I'll tell you what, Sara, 10 years ago when I was having this conversation in my head about would my life be better without alcohol, it felt really intimidating because no one was talking about sobriety from what I would call kind of a personal development and an opportunistic possibility standpoint. And so, I was in my late 20s when I started to kind of renegotiate my relationship with alcohol. I had gone through my party girl years as a college student. I probably drank a little bit more than you described because I definitely prided myself as someone who could really throw down with the boys and, drink other people under the table. And I had I wouldn't take those days back, even though, yes, I drank more than I know now I should have. But I think that it was a rite of passage and it allowed me to get so far off track that I realized that I wanted a different path. And so in my late 20s, I got to this place where I was heartbroken. I just, lost a relationship that I really thought was the one. I was overworked and underappreciated at my job. And so I felt like I was just devoting all of this time and energy to this thing that I really loved, but just wasn't paying off in the end. And I felt kind of lost. I was just having this existential crisis. And at the time, I had this beautiful mentor who took me under his wing and he introduced me to New Age spirituality and personal development. And at this point in time, I was living in the Bible Belt. So I had never been exposed to anything other than traditional religion. And he just gave me this gift of possibility of seeing my life from a different trajectory. Because at that point, I was in this, I'm this young girl basically in my 20s. Woe is me. Everything sucks. Why do I hate? Why do I, struggle so much? When are things going to get better? And he introduced me to a few books that really transformed the way that I thought. And for about 3 years, I was in this kind of tug of war with alcohol because during the week, Monday through Friday, I was being this very mindful, very productive, very, self growth oriented woman. And I was working really hard. And then on the weekends, I was doing this thing that I thought was balanced, Sara, and I was playing hard. And so then it was time for me to let it all go and shut it all off and relax and treat myself and reward myself. And I really, didn't see a problem with this. I thought it was very normal. And as you can probably relate, it is a very normalized process and cycle and lifestyle. But then, Sara, something strange happened that I couldn't quite figure out why all of these things I was reading about in books weren't really exactly happening to me. I wasn't really making as much progress as I had anticipated. And I started to get frustrated. And I kind of came to this fork in the road where I realized, either it's A, I am doomed and none of this stuff is going to work for me and I'm cursed, or B, that there is something counterproductive I am doing that is keeping these things from sticking. And I think even when you apply kind of the health and wellness perspective, you start to realize that, oh, it's that B path, that what if I'm doing something that's counterproductive to my healing, to my growth, to my expansion? And unfortunately, the only thing that I could pinpoint was alcohol. There were sure other like mildly unhealthy habits, but that was the one. And I really didn't want that to be the case because as a young woman, I put it as so much of my identity. This was what helped me cut loose and become the life of the party. This was my reward for working hard all week. And yet, no matter what way I looked at it, that came to be the thing that was keeping me stuck and holding me back and keeping me from the results that I wanted. And so even though I didn't have a problem, even though I wasn't experiencing addiction or any of those symptoms, I had to face the fact that maybe alcohol was creating problems in my life because it was keeping me from the life I wanted. And so On January 1st, 2017, I stopped drinking for a month. And that month turned into 3 months, then to 6 months, then to a year. And it's been 8 years since that experiment, and I haven't looked back once.
Congratulations. Well,
Thank you.
just to get into the weeds of the biochemistry of it, alcohol increases stress when you're not drinking.
Yep.
So having that drink relaxes you for the moment. The next day, you're going to be more depressed. It is increasing the stress hormones. It's increasing estrogen dominance. It's crossing the blood-brain barrier. It's causing inflammation in the brain. So of course you can't connect to your higher self, right? Of course. And it's wreaking havoc on the hormones. We can get into that, especially, as us women get into perimenopause and menopause. A funny story, Amanda, is that my high school group of friends, they like to drink. And I always am like the one that is the first one out at 9 or 10, maybe, if I can hold myself to it. Because why do you want to be up late when you're not drinking? Like you run out of gas because you're tired, because you get up at 5 or 6 in the morning. So it's that. But this last year we got together and we're sitting around the table, and out of 7 of us, there were 2 drinking. And the topic of, God, I just can't drink like I used to anymore. And it's because of the hormones. But that's a whole nother thing as far as what it's physically doing to the body. Of course, it's also dampening the liver. It's disrupting protein and fat metabolism and all the things. And our livers are already bombarded by everything else in the world. So that's just one more thing. But when it comes to your connection to your brain and your spiritual health and maybe your anxiety or depression, you think it's helping, but it's actually making it worse. And I always laugh because my dad is a very impulsive person. And it actually increases impulse behavior when you're not drinking. So I'm not just talking about the angry drunk. I'm talking about just when you're sober during the week. So it is affecting your behavior. But this is the part I want to focus on today with you is the relationships, because I have had to navigate, okay, so I'm not the fun one getting drunk anymore. People aren't going to want to hang out with me. And yes, I stopped getting invited to certain things. And at first it hurt, but then it was like, I didn't really want to go. So it took the pressure off of having to say no to something that I was not going to feel comfortable in. But then I got the confidence of, hey, I'm actually more fun when I'm sober, because alcohol doesn't make me feel that great anyway. And if people don't want to be with the sober me, then I'll find new friends. But that took maturity. That took, kind of some self-discovery and age. So let's talk about that with the relationships, your friend group. They always say that if a spouse gets sober, a lot of times they get divorced because there's that codependency, right? So how do you navigate that, and what's going on with the relationships?
Yeah, first, Sara, I just want to say that this is I collect data from all of my clients and students, and friendships and romantic relationships are the absolute biggest fear of the reason that people do not quit drinking, is because they worry that they'll become a social outcast, or that, exactly as you said, that they will realize that there is a rupture in their relationship romantically, and that will cause them to have to look at some hard things that they haven't quite yet wanted to look at. And the reality is that, whoever you are as a drinker is probably not the real you. It's probably not the best version of you. And so when you step back and start to kind of embrace who you are authentically, you're going to find that perhaps some of the people you've been hanging around with aren't exactly who you want to be friends with anymore. And that's no gossip or negativity toward any of your friends. It's just that we tend to surround ourselves in different phases of our lives with people who are like-minded and like behaving. So if you've been around people who are drinking and partying and all of a sudden you're not, what you might realize is that some of these friendships aren't as connected. They aren't as, maybe they're just really surface level, and that you're craving for something deeper, because that's what we want out of our connections. We want this deep reciprocity and authenticity. And what you might realize is that some of these settings that you're hanging out with your friends just aren't conducive for that. The bars, the, rowdy places where drinking is really touted, So the first thing that I would really recommend for anyone is not to write off all of your friendships, because there are still deep friendships to be found, but you just have to be brave enough and creative enough to change the context. So what I found is that, I tried at first, Sara, to go to all of those events and just see it through sober eyes. And I found out pretty quickly that if something wasn't fun without alcohol, it probably just was not fun. And I
Right.
had been using alcohol to make myself numb to that fact. And so many of the activities we were doing were in these highly overstimulating environments where I just couldn't connect with anyone.
Yeah.
And that was leaving me feeling, heartbroken. There's nothing worse than to be around a sea of people and to feel totally alone. And so I opted out of some of those things unless absolutely necessary. Like, will I go to an important birthday party or a wedding or something every now and again? Sure. But we used to have this thing called Margarita Friday, which is exactly what it sounds like. You go to a Mexican restaurant and eat and have margaritas. It was so loud and impossible for me to connect with my friends that I thought, you know what, this is a no for me. So what I did is I started setting boundaries. I got clear on what that was for myself. And then I started inviting my friends out to do other things that were not drinking. And that was the telltale, like, here are the relationships that I actually have closeness and comfort with. And here are the ones that maybe were just reserved for the party days. And that was such a scary but also refreshing thing to be able to say, oh, some of these people are still my friends. That's wonderful. It transcends this activity and this state of unconsciousness. And then that also created space for me to find new friends that met my existing values. And Sara, I'll tell you, as someone who always kind of was a little bit of an awkward social person as a youth, that now I have some of the deepest, most reciprocal, most loving friendships that I could have ever imagined. And it's just so beautiful that, I hopefully this lands. I think your audience will understand my Rolodex is smaller, but the relationships have so much more depth.
Yeah.
And I really appreciate that. But I did fear the worst at first.
Yeah.
And I just want to say that for anyone who's fearing the worst, that there's actually something really beautiful and expansive on the other side of it.
So I want to just talk about children for a minute, because all three of my kids had a different experience, and they're 18, 20, and 22.
Mm-hmm.
None of them drank in high school.
Mm-hmm.
And honestly, that wasn't because I said, don't drink in high school. My husband actually said, hey, when you want to have a beer, I'll have a beer with you, because we wanted to make sure they were safe and they weren't going to go off the rails in college. That's not what we wanted. But what they saw was a mom that just didn't drink.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't make a big deal about it. I wasn't hammering that alcohol is bad. I just didn't drink. At night at dinner, when I was growing up, my dad had a drink every night. My dad, even to today, if we're together, he'll say, Sara, you don't want to drink? I'm like, dude, I haven't been drinking in front of you for years.
Uh-huh.
I mean, but it's that even my father will say that because it makes the other person uncomfortable. So number one, I taught my kids from day one. I'm like, you can always fake drink. That red Solo cup is awesome with some sparkling Perrier and a lemon. Just say it's a vodka soda, and people will turn away and smile and think you're all good. But my eldest was my boy. He went off to college, and he got himself into drinking, and he's like, I don't feel good. Like this,
Mm-hmm.
he wants to go skiing and mountain bike riding and go to the gym and have the energy to get up at 7 and do life. And there's a lot of times where he's like, I don't really want to go out, but all my friends are going to the bar. And if I go to the bar, just like you said,
Mm-hmm.
the only thing that makes it fun is alcohol, because
Yeah.
being in a loud place is not very fun anyway. And so he has learned to navigate. He has a very addictive personality. So since he was young, I was always worried, was this going to be the kid that's going to have an issue with something? He's addicted to athletics. So
Adrenaline. Yeah. Love that.
So then my middle child, she was the one that I was a little more worried about. She partakes in alcohol at school, but she is an athlete. So it is like very limited. She's got to be up at 5 for workout the next day. So it is very limited. And then also, she unfortunately had a roommate that not only drank a lot, but got into some harder drugs. The ramifications of all of it, it was like a big lesson right in front of her face. And she's like, yeah, okay. But then the very interesting one is my baby. When she was in 8th grade, this was during COVID. So I don't know if you remember, but during COVID, it seemed like with children, everything sped up because they had so much more time on their hands. So with my son's year, they didn't really start drinking until sophomore year. By the time my daughter was in 8th grade, they were drinking not just during the night, but during the day. They were doing drugs, they were having sex, all of these things. And she really was uncomfortable. She pulled herself away from her friend group to have no friends.
Yeah.
And I thought, oh my gosh, she's so strong at the age of 14 to make that decision to not give in to peer pressure. And she now is a senior. She's going off to college. She does not want to be drinking. She's going to be in a sport. She's going to row. But part of that is to have something else to focus on. So it's not just the partying. But I talked to her on this last Sunday. I said, Kiana, you should write a book. You actually pulled yourself away from a friend group at a very young age because you didn't like what they were doing. And now look at your friends. Her friends are amazing now. They are solid, fun girls, don't drink. They are full of light. And I'm like, you've got the best friend group ever. And I said, how did you do it? She goes, I honestly don't know. And I said, well, it was a God thing, because it also, though, I think it's what they're watching at home. And she was seeing me. I was having fun with my friends. None of my friends, and I've heard you say like attracts like, right?
Yes.
Well, my best friends are like me, where it's not, I'm never going to have alcohol again. But, oh my God, I went out last night for the first time in 4 months, had a couple drinks, and I feel awful. And we're all very similar because like does attract like. And so there are those friends out there. And I'm using my daughter as an example, where if you pull yourself away, and I told her this during the time, I go, you can't make room for those friends if you've got those other friends in their spot. You've got to pull them away so there's space to fill with the right people. So I want to give people hope when they have this fear of like, who am I going to hang out with? I'm going to be isolated.
Yeah.
Actually, no, you're going to find people that are more like-minded and have deeper, more fulfilling relationships.
Absolutely. And man, wow, how intuitive of your daughter to take that step back and say, and also how heartbreaking that was happening to eighth graders are just little kids. They're just little kids. And I'm really glad that she followed her intuition or whatever it was and just allowed herself to be a kid. And I think that, you setting that example of what could be possible at home and not also ignoring it. I think that that's the important thing, because I work with a lot of women who are like, I hope that my kids never drink like I do. I hope that they never try alcohol. And I'm like, you know what? I'm not going to hope that for them, because I think that ignorance sometimes can lead to even more problems down the road. We know that happens with finances, with sex, with all of these things. So I love that you had the conversations with them and that you were open and that you also just led by example, but you weren't preachy and shameful, because that created a space for them to be conscious and explore versus being ignorant or thinking, oh, it's just bad and wrong. And then if they did interact with alcohol, that then it became a shame thing. And it's this perfect storm of having the conversation and being a good example, but also not being like, well, don't do this or you're bad, because that creates a whole different sense of rebellion. And I think that that's reflected in how all of your kids, and we all, of course, have our own personalities and nervous systems. But I think that it's a lot of, we need to see different examples. And we also need to see examples of how our parents regulate their nervous system. And to kind of wrap back around to probably some of what of your clients are experiencing, is the reality is most of us did not get a great example of nervous system regulation. And so then we picked up this tool in our teens and 20s that quote unquote helped us. And now we think it's necessary as a social lubricant, as an emotional band-aid. And so what I'm kind of called to do in my work is help rewind that track and help women realize, where have I used this as a fake, unhelpful, cheating tool? And how can I get actual tools to help myself stand tall and help myself feel comfortable in these social situations. And like you said, open up the space to bring in these great social relationships that actually also feel really good for my nervous system so that I don't feel anxious and feel like I need to drink around my friends. I think that it's, this kind of very interwoven process that we can start if we get curious about our relationship with alcohol.
I don't know anyone who has stopped drinking for the 30 days or the
Mhm.
60 days who said, God, I feel awful. Like
Yeah.
everybody feels good. And then maybe they'll start drinking again. And then it's like that roller coaster where it just continues. But no one has ever said, I feel awful.
Yeah.
Because there is that clarity. There's this energy you wake up with. Your cortisol levels are regulated. Your hormones are better. Your energy, your liver's loving you. Your gut is probably feeling better. Your food and digestion are feeling better.
Mhm.
All of that stuff. But it also, not just with the social pressures of friendships, but the spouse. I
Mhm.
know couples, and I'm thinking about one in particular where she says, I met my husband at a time where I was drinking a lot,
Mhm.
and it was part of our relationship, and we go out and we drink, and he's an alcoholic now, and she
Mm.
will go in and out of drinking, and now she doesn't drink because he is not in a healthy spot. Um, but that creates a lot of stress because it
Yeah.
does change the relationship. What do you say to couples that are in
Mhm.
that situation?
Yeah, being alcohol free is always going to illuminate some uncomfortable realities you've been avoiding. And if you've been drinking to either put yourself at the same level as your partner or maybe avoid the discomfort of something that they are experiencing, then you're just going to see these realities raw. And I just want to commend anyone who does that because I know that I'm not making this sound fun and exciting right now. And it's so brave and important because here's the thing, what if, yes, that leads to you having some ultimatum in your relationship, either you get help or you get divorced, or I realize that I no longer love you and I want a divorce. Wouldn't you rather, even though yes, I know that there are so many financial and other things within this decision, um wouldn't you rather do it and have a life where you at least get to be at peace and be happy? What if maybe that person changes their life? They say, you know what, you're right. Wow, that ultimatum is what I needed. Um, or you create a new life for yourself where this isn't a central hub of it. And I think that is really upsetting to have to face that. And I'm so sorry for, your friend and anyone else who might be experiencing that. But you deserve to live a life where you're happy. And if there's something in your life that you've been ignoring that's creating dissatisfaction and stress and sadness and depression, you deserve to take a look at it. And I know that you're capable of taking a look at it. And I really just want to encourage anyone who's in that situation to do so.
Yeah. The one thing I always say is you cannot take something away from your life without filling it with something else. Like
Mhm.
for the food example would be if you're trying to get off the processed foods, you need to fill your fridge and your pantry of the healthy foods so that
Mhm.
you don't feel deprived. I have a cousin who got sober, and when she did, she took up painting, and she was up till 3 in the morning painting. Not
Yes.
that she has an addictive personality, but she at least was on her road to replacing it with some other behavior. And that's the thing. Like when it is something like just like you were saying, people want to go on walks with me, get their nails done, go to a nice quiet dinner, go on a hike. There's so many fun, sober activities out there. And then imagine you actually are having real conversations instead
Yeah.
of being at a loud bar and trying to talk over it and waking up with a raspy voice and a hangover, right?
Yeah.
So there's,
Yes. I always, you just made me remember these two very juxtaposed events in the last 5 years. One is the year that I turned 30. I threw this, big themed birthday party for myself, and people flew in and drove in. And I was so honored at the time to have all these people there. And what I realized through the course of the night and through looking back is that several of my friends had weren't being very, I'll say this, and I know I'm going to sound like a diva, like attentive to me. They had wandered off. They decided to go on side quests to go out to other bars and go do other things. And it really hurt my feelings. And I thought, wow, I don't feel loved right now by these people. And I remember just it being this night that I was so excited about, and then being just really upset with how it turned out, because a couple of people couldn't show up for me the way that I wanted. And maybe I wasn't showing up for them, because let's be honest, I wasn't the best friend either. I was drinking at the point. So I wasn't being the best hostess or anything like that. And then I looked to a period about a year ago when I was in the middle of launching my book. And one of my girlfriends said, you know what, Amanda, I'm not married and I don't have children. So I haven't had some of these milestone female events where you get this big shower thrown for you. And she said, I want to throw you a shower to celebrate your book. And I want you to invite whoever, is just really would be meaningful to have there. And so I had this very intimate, yet still rather large group of people who came up, and I might even be emotional saying this, because when I look at the difference between those two events that seemed so special to me, these people truly loved me, and they showed up, and they were devoted only to making sure I was celebrated. Not one of them used it as an opportunity to network or tout what they did or tout their accomplishments. It was a full-fledged event to love on me. And I thought, wow, this is what I was looking for all those years ago when I threw that big party for myself, was this connection and these people who supported and loved me. And it was just this embodiment of this whole 180-degree rotation. And I just want you all to know that that's available to you, that you can have those connected friendships where people are showing up for you truly, and they see you and they love you and support you, versus just they want to come party with you.
Right.
And it's really powerful to see that in action.
It is. And I want to get into the spiritual aspect, whether you are religious or just spiritual or just self-actualization, connecting with yourself, getting the most out of life. When you're drinking, you're waking up just to get through the day, right? You're just trying to make it one more day. Your emotions are down. Your brain is not functioning 100%. I don't care who you are. Your brain is not functioning as well as it would without alcohol. That is a fact.
Yes.
So with that being said, it is an opportunity. It's an opportunity to show up bigger and better in life to yourself, for your loved ones, for your career, for everything. So can you talk a little bit more about that and the connection to what the opportunity is in spirituality?
Yes. And so I'm going to use very broad spiritual terms like spirit and universe, but you can substitute whatever works for you. Because alcohol comes in and affects you at every single level of your body, of your emotions, of your spirit. It affects you on the soul level as well. And I believe that we always have a connection to our internal guidance system, our intuition, but there's also that connection to a higher power, whatever that is for you. But the difference is that when you are drinking, it's like trying to communicate and make that connection on a cell phone in a tunnel. And it's going to be crackly, and it's going to be like, oh, hey, can you hear me? What was that? And that's going to be the vibe of that conversation with your intuition and with your higher power. But if you have a clear vessel, a clear mind, a clear body, you're going to be out with a powerful top of the line cell phone right next to a really connected area. All your bars are clear. And that is, as someone who has experienced it, and it's so profound that it's really hard to see it until you've seen it. It's so, just go with me here, but it's the difference between being confused and feeling lost and feeling unsupported and feeling, just really uninspired in your life. And then finally feeling like you don't have to poll the audience. You don't have to deal with, every time you have a question, you don't have to deal with anxiety about making decisions. You always know that either you're going to find the answer within yourself, or something outside of you is going to miraculously guide you to the answer. And as someone who really started this journey with a hunger, with a yearning for that spiritual connection that I was reading about in all of these books, I can say that I found that in so many ways, but it took me getting out of my own way first and creating a clear channel to communicate with myself, with spirit. And so many things have changed for me in terms of that connection. And it's just more clear. And I think that, once you see it, you can't unsee it is the message there, which I know is a little ethereal. But if you're someone who is also, a spiritual person, a religious person, that you desire that connection, I would really, really encourage you to try for 90 days minimum to see what it's like to try and establish that connection without alcohol in the picture.
Well, just the mere fact that it increases anxiety and
Mm-hmm.
fear in general,
Yeah.
you aren't going to feel grounded with
No.
alcohol in your system. So
Right.
whether we're talking about spirituality or a connection to God, you just aren't grounded.
Mm-mm.
And I, I've gone through my challenges like everybody has, and I really believe with every challenge, everything that happens is for a reason. And I always look at these challenges as, okay, God, what am I supposed to learn from this? And there's always a silver lining, but it settles me down and it grounds me. And I do not think I'd feel that way if I was on edge from, having the after effects of drinking the night before.
Mm-hmm.
It just doesn't work that way.
Yeah.
So it really is an opportunity. So I
Mm-hmm.
want everyone to listening to think of maybe taking a break, not as something that you're going to miss and you're going to miss out on the fun and you're going to miss out on the relationships and the parties. What are you going to gain?
Mm-hmm.
Your relationships are going to get deeper. Your relationships with your children are going to get deeper. Your career, you might be able to manifest things in your business that you weren't able to do.
Mm-hmm.
There's so much more opportunity. And we have a few minutes left. I wanted to make sure we touch on the fact that there is a difference between men and women, especially as we get older.
Yeah. Yeah. And I will let you speak to more of the physical and biochemical side. But, what I see a lot, Sarah, is that my clients, I work specifically with women, and I'm not a medical professional by any means. I like to explain things in more of an armchair expert, layman's terms. But I'll watch a husband and wife enter this like alcohol free path together. And, even though I really, really want to stress that this is not I don't want people to use this as a weight loss technique. Yes, it will help. But if that is your primary goal, oh, wow, you're about to be in for a really abrupt awakening because there's so much to being alcohol free. But I'll see these, couples go into the process, and the woman will watch her husband shedding weight, getting absolutely ripped right before her very eyes. And she hasn't lost a pound. And it's so frustrating because, they're eating the same things, they're doing the same workouts or whatever. Men's bodies are different than women's bodies, especially as we age. And I work with a lot of women who have entered the perimenopause process. And so your body is completely reacting differently, notwithstanding that your husband is just going to process every single exercise and food item quite differently than you. And so you're going to have different reactions, but it can be really frustrating when you watch your partner really trimming up and you're just sitting here kind of at status quo on a visual sense. So, maybe you can explain that a little more in technical terms, but that's what I see people getting really frustrated with. But I want you to know it's normal. It's normal.
Yeah. No, I always say us women are very special and complicated, and men are very
Yes.
simple. And it's
Uh-huh.
like very linear. And it's the same reason that men can fast better than women. And just like you're saying with weight loss. And it's funny because I have a friend who went on a diet, and they, with her husband, they went alcohol free. They went on a diet. They incorporated exercise. She goes, yeah, he's lost 20 pounds and I've gained 10.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, wait a second, this is not supposed to be this way. Amanda, before we go, what are a couple tips that you can give people as they're just contemplating this whole idea and their mind's going, yeah, this sounds great, but I don't know.
Yeah, I know that it sounds kind of extreme and also kind of Pollyanna, like hopeful that your life could be completely changed without alcohol in the picture. And I want to say, as someone who has experienced that firsthand and watched other hundreds and thousands of women change their life through this process of setting a foundation for their own growth and their own health by removing alcohol, that it is really miraculous. And will it fix everything? No, because there's still a lot of work that has to be done after alcohol is out of the picture. But for me, what I would want you to know is that if you are at all curious about this conversation or about anything we've talked about, maybe it lit up something within you, or maybe it's affirming or nudging something that was already in you before. I think that it is worth a shot to at least start with a, reasonable yet achievable, if not a little bit challenging break from alcohol. And I'd love to challenge you to start with 90 days. I know, ow, because most of you are thinking 30 days. Great, I can do it for a month. I really want you to know that the results that you're going to see in 30 days might actually be disappointing because you're not going to see profound change. And so, if you really want to see some of the benefits, I really would love to challenge anyone listening to try a 90-day break this year and see what happens. Yes, I know there's not going to be a really convenient time. There's always going to be a wedding or a happy hour or something. And you're never going to regret conquering those things without alcohol. So why don't you give it a try and just see how powerful you could be this year?
Why not? You
Yeah,
can always go back, right?
absolutely.
We're not
Absolutely.
we're not taking it away forever.
Yeah.
And that's what when I started, abstaining, it was like I don't have to.
Hmm.
So let's just see. I can
Yeah,
always go back.
absolutely.
And that because you don't want to get into the position where you can't and
Yes.
you're forced. So,
Hmm.
well, Amanda, where can people find you and where can they find your amazing book?
Thank you for asking. I am all over the internet at Amanda Kuda, and my last name is Kuda. I would love to connect on Instagram. That's primarily where I hang out. And I have what I think, biased a little bit, a really wonderful book called Unbottled Potential: Break Up with Alcohol and Break Through to Your Best Life. It's a really personal development, self actualization approach to being alcohol free. And you can find that on Amazon, either in all formats. And for your listeners today, Sara, I created also a 21-day challenge that's a companion with the book. And of course, the best way to do that is with reading the book at the same time. But if your guests would like it for free, all they have to do is go to amandakuda.com/challenge and enter accelerated, the first part of the name of your podcast, and I will just give it to you for free.
Awesome. We'll put
Yeah,
that in the show notes as well.
absolutely.
Thank you, Amanda.
Thanks, Sara. Talk soon.
Oh my goodness, what an amazing conversation. And it really talks or touches on the fact that it's not just your physical health, it's your emotional, your spiritual, your mental health. And we're in an era right now where our mental health is in the decline exponentially. Everyone is suffering from depression and anxiety, but there's also this part of the physical impact of alcohol. And there's no two ways about it. It's been in the news a lot lately that whole idea of moderation is out the window. Alcohol, don't shoot the messenger, is not good for your body. So what do you do? And how do you get out of it? How are you going to feel good day one? Amanda said that the first 30 days may not feel that great. Well, I want to give you the tools to help you feel good day one. Remember, my cleanses, all of the stuff that I do is meant to give you that foundation so that you feel like, oh, I can do the hard stuff now. Well, number one is the accelerated liver care because our livers are being bombarded by the toxins, the radiation, the heavy metals, the processed foods, the artificial sweeteners, all of these things, and the spike protein. It has dampened our liver health. So then you put that alcohol in, it's fuel to the fire. The body says, I have no place to put this alcohol. I need to burn it before I burn those healthy carbs and proteins and fats that you just ate. So I'm going to store all of those as fat and my liver is going to back up. That's why I'm going to get alcohol or fatty liver disease, not just alcohol fatty liver disease, but even the non-alcoholic fatty liver disease, which has risen to over 50% in adults and 25% in children. So what can you do? That accelerated liver care is a new supplement. And this supplement took my enzymes, my liver enzymes from over 700. Now they're supposed to be under 20. I was fighting a virus to down to within almost a normal range within 2 weeks. That is unheard of. That accelerated liver care is gently going to cleanse, rebuild, and restore your liver function. It helps with your immune system. It breaks down the gallstones, those liver stones. It helps open up those detox pathways. It increases the microcirculation in the liver. It increases or helps with the cholesterol and your blood sugar. There's so many things in it that no other liver formula has. And then, of course, with any accelerated health product, we only get the best ingredients and herbs from around the globe, very stringent with our testing. And we put them together in the right ratios for the best, most optimal synergistic effect. We then, of course, enhance it with scalar frequencies. Our liver care is enhanced with frequencies to open up the liver and gallbladder meridian so that the herbs go to the place they're supposed to go and actually do the work they're supposed to do. This is why I talk about the importance of when you're taking your herbs, making sure you're not taking a liver detox herb with a multivitamin that's supposed to nourish your body. You need to take those separate, right? So the whole idea with the opening up the liver and the gallbladder meridians is that the herbs are actually going to where they're supposed to go. Now, that's step one, but you can also do step two, the accelerated liver flush cleanse that incorporates the liver care, but then you do a 2-week prep and then you flush all of those gallstones into the toilet. You can have thousands of them and you will be amazed at how good you feel. That is going to quicken the benefits of getting rid of alcohol. Now, on top of that, adding in the accelerating iodine. Why? Because people are drinking because they're depressed or they're anxious. Well, the number one cause of depression is iodine deficiency. That iodine is also going to cleanse the blood so the liver can do its job. It's going to help balance those hormones. It's going to increase your thyroid health so you have energy to go to the gym and go on a hike and go to a nice quiet dinner alcohol-free with your friends and have more clarity. It's also known as the number one spiritual element. Amanda talks about connecting with your higher self and your spiritual health. Well, iodine is that key to open up that pathway, decalcify the pineal gland so that you're connecting with your higher self. Now think about it. Your thyroid is the bridge from your brain to your body, and your thyroid needs that iodine. So without the energy and the ATP and all the mitochondria in your body, you're not going to have that pathway from your brain to your body and connect with your higher self. So the accelerating iodine. And you can also incorporate the accelerated fast. This helps shift your body into ketosis, maybe fast a little bit, because part of the problem with alcohol is it does cause leaky gut. It causes that disruption in the gut microbiome. You're not going to be absorbing the nutrients from your food, let alone the alcohol, which has no nutrients, but it's going to also disrupt your hormonal production, your GABA, serotonin, dopamine, all of your happy hormones. So the accelerated fast suppresses the cravings for not just sugar, but alcohol and maybe any other addiction you have. It really is that key, and it makes you feel good and give you that energy so you don't need the alcohol. Lastly is the accelerated cellular detox powder. Now, whether you're ready to give up drinking or not, this detox powder soaks up the toxins that you're kicking out so that you don't have those detox flu symptoms. Now, if you do drink, it is great to be taking at night so that you don't have as bad of a hangover the next morning because it soaks up the alcohol. Now, I'm not saying that's what I'm recommending you do, but it is a go-to when you do choose to drink. So those are my keys in helping you get over that dependency on alcohol and to maybe think about some other behaviors, some other activities to do to enlighten your brain, to enlighten your life, to make it more fulfilling, your relationships more fulfilling. Imagine that. Imagine that you're not living at your highest level. Imagine there's so much more potential to what your life could be. So you don't want to think about abstaining from alcohol as something that's hindering you or something that is going to be less than what you are experiencing now. It's actually going to be more. You are going to have more of an option with life, with relationships, with career. So thanks for listening. Our discussion does not have to stop here. If you're feeling lost in the supplement world, just contact me, get your free supplement protocol, head to SaraBantaHealth.com, complete the form, and I will personally put together a protocol for you. Follow me on social media at Accelerated Health Products and join the free group coaching. Ask your questions about today. Why not? There's no downside. You can find this podcast and all the podcasts at Accelerated Health with Sara Banta on Spotify, Apple, YouTube, E360, Amazon, Roku, iHeartRadio, and over 100 different platforms. Share this episode. So many people in your life need to hear it. There's an option. You don't have to drink to have a great life, right? So share it with some friends and family. And you can use coupon podcast10 to get 10% off site-wide. Remember, I'm live every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, so join me next time for more ways to unlock your health potential.